Hi, my name is Jamin Goecker. I'm a realtor in South Central Alaska, and my mission is to help people to build an intentional and significant legacy for themselves and their families by coaching them in real estate. Now, the big step that we're going to take today in order to help you make that happen is to give you the market update for what's going on in the Mat-Su Valley as far as real estate is concerned. We're going to be covering the residential, condos, and the multifamily markets just to show you what's been going on for the past month, and also just kind of what's been going on for the entire year as far as the Mat-Su Valley is concerned. So before we get started though, do make sure you give this video a like. Do make sure that if you have any specific questions or videos, topics you'd like to see covered in future videos, you post those down below. And without further ado, let's go and jump into it today. First thing that we're going to look at is the number of active listings that are actually on the market right now, because this is going to be a good gauge on how much inventory that we have. Now over here you see that there are 54 properties that were on the market last year. This year, same time period, past month in November, we're seeing that there's only 30. And that's really a trend that we're seeing all the way for the entire year here, all the way behind me, is that inventory for the entire year of 2020 in the Mat-Su Valley has been pretty low as far as residential properties go. So that's number one, inventory's low. The next thing that we're going to be checking out is the number of properties that have actually sold in this market during this time frame. Now, over here, this shows us that we actually do have about 167 homes that sold in this market last year in November. This year, it's 174. So even though the inventory is really compressed, we're seeing that the number of properties that are still selling is actually higher than what we saw last year, even though the inventory was significantly higher. So that's also pretty significant. We'll dive more into that in the summary. The next thing we really need to check out is just how overall the entire residential market in the Mat-Su Valley has done since the beginning of the year. Because this is the end of the year at this point, we get pretty good snapshot on how we're doing. So over here, what we're actually seeing is that the amount of inventory or amount of properties that have actually sold is actually increased by about 8%. So not bad at all. Now let's take a 30,000 foot view and just get a feel for how the entire residential market in the Mat-Su Valley has been doing in the past year. This over here shows us that we had an actual increase of a total number of homes that sold by roughly 8%. So that's doing really good. Kind of switching gears, over here we're seeing that we actually saw about an 10% increase in the average sold price for properties in this market. So that's pretty significant to see that much of an increase. And it's, well, we'll get more into that in the summary. But over here, the days on market obviously went down quite a bit also. So that's really indicative of a really strong market, but we'll talk more about why that is in the summary. Let's switch gears real quick and talk a little bit about what's going on in the condo market in the Mat-Su Valley. Now, I'm always a little hesitant to do the condo market in the Mat-Su Valley just because there's way less data that we get a report on, because condos aren't as popular in the valley as they are in the municipality of Anchorage, but we're going to do it anyway. So looking over here, what we're actually seeing is that the total number of active inventory is down significantly, almost by about half. Now that looks pretty catastrophic. Keep in mind though, the total number of property or condos that were on the market this time last year in November was 11 condos. This year it's 6. So it looks pretty catastrophic, and it is pretty low inventory, but we don't have a whole lot to begin with there. But that's pretty much the trend you're going to see really for the entire past year for condos in the Mat-Su Valley. Let's switch gears a little bit now and look at the total number of condos that actually sold in the Mat-Su Valley during the time frame that we're looking at. Now in the past month, just looking at this, you might say, man, that is a lot less properties that sold. But again, got to take a look at the overall amount of inventory. Last year, 3 condos sold. This year, 2 condos sold. Either way, not a lot of inventory sells as far as condos go for the month of November. Kind of across the board here, it's kind of just all over the place, and that's what you get when you don't have a whole lot of data for a specific part of the real estate industry. That's just kind of what you get. Now, changing gears again, let's take a look at the 30,000 foot view as far as condos go. Now, this gives us a little bit more data to work with. As far as the total number of units sold, not a whole lot of difference. It's like the difference between one condo, even though there were kind of less condos on the market overall. Now, one thing I would point out though, the average sold price for condos did have about a 14% increase from about 154 up to about 176. So that there is fairly significant. That, and we're also seeing a drastic cut in the days on market for condos, which means that they are definitely in higher demand than what they were in the previous year for the year to date. So that's something we're going to talk about more in the summary. Lastly, let's discuss the multifamily market update. Now over here, first off, what we're seeing is just the inventory overall for the Mat-Su Valley for multifamily units has been down. Last year there was about 54, now there are 30. There are about 10 fourplexes total in the entire Mat-Su Valley right now. So not a whole lot of inventory really across the board. And that's going to be similar for all the other months leading up to this time. So the one thing I would point out about the multifamily properties is that there's a lot more variety. And we've mentioned this before, but you can have the duplex, triplex, fourplex. So you get a lot of different options when it comes to the multifamily properties. But across the board, we are seeing it's significantly down from where it was last year or most other years up to that point too. Another thing that I want to point out is that the number of properties that sold for multifamily properties in the Mat-Su Valley has increased significantly. Kind of like the condos though, it's going to be a smaller data point, so the numbers can really kind of be a little dramatic. Like over here, the total number of properties that sold last year in the month of November was 12. I'm sorry, the total number last year was 6. This year it's 12. So what this shows us is that there's definitely a lot more momentum to just purchase these multifamily properties at the moment. We'll get more into that in the summary, but across the board we are seeing that properties that are in the multifamily market are selling quite well in the Mat-Su Valley. Now the next thing we're going to be checking out is that 30,000 foot view for what's going on in the Mat-Su Valley as far as multifamilies go. Now over here we're seeing that we saw an increase for the units sold by about 21.51%. So doing pretty good year over year. So we're selling more multifamily properties than we did the previous year. Another thing I would point out, we're seeing about a 23% drop in the days on market. Also significant. So it shows that we have a high demand. One thing I need to point out though, we did see a roughly about $15,000 drop in the average sold price from about 435,000, 100,000 down to about roughly kind of estimating about 420,000. So that's about a 3.3% drop in the sales price. So this is that's significant, and let's go and summarize it for you real quick then, just to kind of make this all make sense for you. So let's look at the residential first. There's really not any bad news here if you're looking at selling in the near future, if you're a property owner, because inventory is low, the demand is high, interest rates are going to look pretty attractive to buyers, and so they're going to be eager to get out there and take advantage of them. Because of the pandemic, we're seeing the inventory remains pretty low in the residential. So that's good. We don't know how long this is going to last. All we know is it is not going to last. We're in kind of a bit of a bubble at the moment. This is a very specific set of circumstances that we find ourselves in, where we have a pandemic and the interest rates are so low to kind of create this perfect storm for sellers up here. So if you're on the fence about selling, you need to get off the fence and take advantage of this if selling is something that you were thinking about before, because it's not likely going to get any better than what it is right now. Secondly, we're seeing the condos. More demand, way more demand, especially looking at the days on market, really does indicate there's a lot of demand for those condos right at the moment. So that remains pretty healthy. For the multifamily properties, This is kind of an interesting group, and the reason is that interest rates are low, and that is a good source for investors to kind of save money in the long term when it comes to paying off the mortgage. What I would say about that, though, is that a lot of investors, and we're also seeing that more multifamily properties are selling, but curiously enough, it's not the exact same trend we saw with the condos and the residential, where we saw lower inventory, higher prices, and less days on the market. With the multifamilies, we're seeing more properties are selling, inventory is low, the days on the market are lower, and we're seeing a decrease in the sales price. Now, this might go back more to the fact that we have duplexes, fourplexes, everything in between selling. So that might account for a pretty good part of it and why we're seeing that decrease. It could also be that some people are just trying to sell their properties and just need to get a move on, and having to do that because a lot of investors are kind of sitting on their hands right now, and they're not really taking advantage of the low interest rates because they expect there's going to be a huge foreclosure crisis on the horizon, and they want to take advantage of it. I'm really not seeing that in the data, though. So if you're an investor, you're on the fence, definitely check out a video I'm going to be posting in the near future, talking about if there's going to be a foreclosure crisis in the South Central Alaska area. I'm not particularly seeing it in the data, but I've been wrong before. So we'll just see what happens, and I'll show you what I'm seeing as far as the data goes. But other than that, that is going to be your summary. So I sure hope this has been useful. If it has, do make sure you give this video a thumbs up. And if you're ready to start looking for properties here in the Mat-Su Valley, do make sure you check out my app, which the link for that is going to be down in the description. Video up above is going to show you how to do it. If you're ready to reach out to me directly, please do so through my Facebook page. Link for that is going to be down below. And check out my Instagram page as well. So, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.